I'm not even going to pretend. It's late at night on Friday, the day before the Champions League final in Munich at the Allianz Arena. First, let me say this has been quite an exciting but tiring day. I've spent most of the daylight hours inside the Garden Arena near the old Olympic Stadium, where, yeah, you're right, Aberdeen drew with Bayern Munich in 1983 before beating them and knocking them out of the Cup Winners' Cup final. So it's good to be around holy turf. But right next door to that old, not abandoned but now not used Bayern Munich Stadium is this arena where the ultimate champions legends were playing in four groups of about 7 or 8 players. There was FC Figo, there was Seedorf Royals, Kaká's Kings, I forget who all else. And there was Andres Iniesta, Thiago Alcantara, Dietmar Hamann, Luis Garcia, Gaisca Mendieta, Peter Cech, Jens Lehmann, etc., etc., etc. A cast of not only brilliant stars, but Zé Roberto in extraordinary fitness condition. Equally, Blaise Matuidi, remarkable. There were 8,000 or 9,000 paying punters there. I was lucky enough to be asked to do the commentary. I really enjoyed it. I haven't commentated on Legends football before, and the last time I saw Legends football, it was kind of slow, and they showed their age. Not anymore. Fucking hell. These boys are in extraordinary form. The quality of the football is really high. 2 semi-finals, 3rd, 4th place playoff, a final, 50 goals. And in the end, my tip at the beginning of the day, which was any team with Gaisca Mendieta will win, was right. I'm not the biggest fan of Luis Figo, but FC Figo did win. Gaisca Mendieta was in the team, and I enjoyed the experience. Onwards from there to the Deutsche Museum on the banks of the river, up in a rooftop terrace, and half an hour interviewing Dietmar Hamann about, yeah, you guessed it, 20 years ago in Istanbul, and how his morale was low and Rafa didn't pick him in the team, and he sat on the bench thinking, 1 goal down, well, we've got 89 minutes to get it back. 2 goals down, this isn't looking good. 3 goals down, quote Didi Hamann tonight, well, I'm glad I'm not playing. Went into the dressing room against AC Milan for Rafa Benitez's Liverpool in 2005. He said morale was in our boots. It was quiet. We were told to take a drink. We were talked through what was happening. There was the little chaos about could Steve Finnan stay on or not. But Dietmar Hamann was told he was coming on almost immediately half-time, and they reached the dressing room. So he went out to warm up with Paco Ayestarán. So he'd been glum that he hadn't been picked. He'd been watching the 3-0 thinking, well, we don't deserve to be 3-0 down, but that's it. We're cooked, we're gone. And he talked about how, listening to the fans as he was warming up before the rest of the team came out, he began to think, well, it's only a half. If they can do it, we can do it. Now, I don't believe that's retrospective telling of it. I believe that's what he did think. Of course, John Arne Riise crossed for one of the great headers, Steven Gerrard. Dietmar set up one of the goals, I think to Smeacher. Xabi Alonso fails with the penalty, converts it. Dudek does his stuff. Liverpool win the final. The anecdotes from Dietmar Hamann were great, but what interested me was that he's very sympathetic towards Inter in the final on Saturday night, because he said, I recognise the feeling of last chance. He said they knocked Bayern out. He said, I thought they were a little bit lucky to knock Barcelona out. And guys like Acerbi at 37, last chance. I said, so are you rooting for them? They knocked out your old team, Bayern. He said, well, ish. Because he said, and this is where I pick up the thread, he thinks that Paris Saint-Germain are the best organised and most attractive team in the world right now. His idea was that the transcendental leap from the side that he saw losing at Arsenal, the side that he thought in the first half of the season were sluggish and offered no threat, and at Bayern Munich he felt they kind of gave up a little bit. So what he said now about how much he likes the partnership between Marquinhos and Pacho, what he likes about Achraf Hakimi, Donnarumma's changed his agility according to Didi Hamann, and his feeling is that Paris, although in a final, as he said, Istanbul proved that anything can happen, Dietmar Hamann's feeling is that Paris are too lively. He said they have the best front three in the tournament, and he says Dembele has changed that of all recognition. And his argument was, it's been a star-studded culture. It's been a culture that needed eradicated. Dembele, again, according to Dietmar Hamann, at Dortmund. He said, I saw him doing things I couldn't believe that nobody else could do. And then he went to Barcelona and he was unreliable. And now, what's changed, I said? Responsibility. The culture's changed. The coaches bullied him. When there was minor indiscipline, he dropped Dembele, but he put responsibility on his shoulders. That's what Hamann thinks, as well as the change of position, has happened to Ousmane Dembele. I think Inter probably line up with Sommer, a back three of Pavard, Acerbi, Bastoni, the two wing-backs probably being Dumfries and Di Marco in the middle, Çalhanoğlu, Barella, and of course Mkhitaryan up front, Thuram and Lautaro Martinez. For Paris, I think it's Donnarumma with Achraf Hakimi and Nuno Mendes at fullback, Pacho and Marquinhos in the centre-back positions, a midfield of Fabian Ruiz on one side, Joneves on the other side, Vitinha in the middle, tiny pivot, the guy that was an attacking midfielder that Luis Enrique has completely converted. Up front, there's a debate now. Dembele at number 9, I think, absolutely sure. Kvaratskhelia plays. I think maybe Doué instead of Barcola, but what a choice to be able to make. And I worry a little bit because, you know, I've got skin in the game. I really like Luis Enrique. I love the way that Paris Saint-Germain play. Not so much the way that Inter play. I love their character. I appreciate their fighting spirit. The two games that they mounted against Barcelona were two of the great games I've ever seen in my life. But I do want Luis Enrique Martinez to win this. I do want it to be the 10th anniversary of what he did with Barcelona in Berlin against Juve, where he celebrated with his now departed daughter, Chana. I do want the romantic thing to come true, but I also want Luis Enrique's brand of football to be rewarded. Does that mean they're going to win? I have some doubts that I think it's very recently that Paris Saint-Germain have looked all-conquering. I watched them in the first half of the season. They hadn't yet grasped his message. There were problems. It's only been since January that they've erupted. I think they're a little bit, maybe, deficient in full attention to the places in which Inter, that wily, clever, streetwise Inter side, can do them damage. But if it's an end-to-end game, if the game is running back and forward, Paris Saint-Germain's youth and vitality and daring can win it. And although Inzaghi is an inspirational, electric coach on the touchline, I think Luis Enrique has more resources. But what do I know? I'll be there in the Allianz Arena. Thank you to all of you who've supported us, socios. It's nice to be going to the Champions League final, having had these dialogues with you. You write in, you ask questions. I appreciate you being there, and above all, I appreciate you paying to become socios. I'll do you something from the Allianz Arena tomorrow, where it's the Champions League final and Paris Saint-Germain and Inter do battle. For the moment, for me, I'm fucking knackered and I'm off to my scratcher. See you after the final. Stay tuned.